Chapter 15. Sierra had to peel her eyes away from the swirl of living paint. I do, but I don't dance Haitian. Do you salsa? More or less. Then you'll be all right. A group of older gentlemen in matching white suits shuffled onto a stage at the far end of the club. Most of them looked well past retirement age, and a few seemed ready to check out at any moment. Don't they have curfew at the nursing home? Sierra asked. Robbie rolled his eyes and led her onto the dance floor. The old men all raised their instruments at once, and the room filled with a shock of horns over the gentle footsteps of conga drums. Then the pianist let loose a sequence of rising and falling syncopations, and a man's crooning voice stretched over it all. It sounded like some of the old boleros that Lazaro used to put on his phonograph in the house on Myrtle Avenue. But the little fellow on stage was definitely not singing in Spanish. Whatever he was saying, though, it was heartbreaking. Can we, dance now? Robbie asked. Sierra had just been standing there, staring at the band. She put her arms in salsa position, remembering the feeling in her muscles from weekend after weekend of classes when she was a kid. Robbie took her waist in his hands. They started moving, stumbled slightly, and then caught their rhythm. Oh, it's salsa! Sierra laughed, her feet stepping naturally in time with Robbie's. Not exactly, but close enough. The music swirled around them, moved with them, for them. Sierra saw little old couples tear it up, putting some of the awkward younger folks to shame. 2 8- or 9-year-olds spun happily past. The song surged as the crowd swelled, or was it the other way around? Sierra couldn't tell anymore, didn't even care. After a few numbers, everyone was covered in sweat and laughing. Some octogenarian politely tapped Robbie on the shoulder, and Robbie offered him Sierra's hand. Sierra smiled down at the old fellow as he wrapped his little arms around her waist, and the band glided smoothly into another song. 2 middle-aged women blocked Robbie's path to the sitting area and escorted him back to the dance floor. Something in a far corner caught Sierra's eye, and she swung her partner around to get a better look over his head. The vast paintings churned and swayed in time with the music. The elegant soldier leapt from his peak into the sky and found himself a pretty angel to swing with. The classy fellow and his death bride spun wild circles from one wall to the next. The pretty black mermaids formed a dancing ring around one of the dragons, who appeared to be showing off a sultry two-step. Sierra glanced over at Robbie, who was laughing as he tried desperately to keep up with his 2 dance partners. The song wound down, and one of the ancient trumpet players announced that they'd be taking a 20-minute break. When Robbie reached Sierra, he was still trying to catch his breath. You all right there, buddy? You gonna make it? Sierra asked. I'm sure someone here knows CPR. Those 2 ladies, he gasped, putting his hands on his knees. No joke. Before they made it off the dance floor, the room filled with a thundering beat that threatened to blow the rickety old sound system to pieces. Sierra stopped short. This, she announced, putting a hand on Robbie's shoulder, is my jam. Actually, it wasn't her jam at all. The track was slick, though, a heavy double-down beat you could feel in your gut, and clickety-clack rim shots bouncing back and forth like 2 stuttering ghosts. Sierra preferred crazy metal and alternative for relaxing or doing homework, but this would definitely do for the dance floor. She led Robbie back out into the gathering crowd of teenagers. He was smiling, but his eyebrows were raised in concern. What? Sierra laughed. You don't dance to nothing made after 1943? I mean, come here. It was hard not to dance with that beat pounding out into the smoky club. Just use your hips. Find the one and do what you do. Robbie caught the rhythm quickly and broke into an odd little jig, his long arms swinging wild circles. That'll work, she smiled. The floor had filled with dancers grinding up on each other, and the murals, Sierra noticed, responded in kind. All the swirling angels suddenly seemed much closer together. The military man was making out with one of the mermaids. Even the palm trees swayed seductively in time with one another. Sweat poured down Sierra's body, giving her brown skin a shine she could only hope was sexy and not gym class gross. She looked at Robbie and breathed a sigh of relief. The boy was even more drenched than she was. She caught one of his wayward swinging hands and spun into him, wrapping his long arm across her chest. "Don't get slick now, just be easy with it," she whispered. He laughed and stumbled a little. Sierra rolled her eyes. One of Robbie's hands landed on her hip as he found his way back to the rhythm and fell into step, his body pressed up against hers. The song slammed on. Various rappers took turns spitting 16 bars in different languages. Robbie and Sierra stayed there, bouncing easily against each other's sweat-covered bodies. They let the other dancers, the swirling paintings, the whole spinning city around them fade into a colorful blur. Sierra turned toward Robbie and found his face startlingly close. She smiled, her cheek grazing against his, and she felt the little beginnings of stubble, smelled sweat mixed with the musky scent he wore. A different track came on and folks started heading toward the tables. "Outside," Robbie said, panting. "Let's get air." The light summer rain cooled them off after the thick haze of Club Calfour. Sierra and Robbie leaned against a brick wall and watched the cars roll by. "I've never had a night like this in my life," Sierra said. Robbie's smile spread all the way across his face. She felt him watching her out of the corner of his eye. It would be so simple to just stand on her tiptoes and plant a kiss on his neck. He would look down at her and smile, and then they'd make out all night and everything would somehow make sense. "Robbie?" Sierra looked up at him. His neck called out to her like the tractor beam in one of those sci-fi movies her brother Juan was always watching. She opened her mouth. "Shoot," Robbie said, looking over her shoulder. He stepped forward. Sierra growled. "What is it?" "Someone's coming, you see?" At the far end of the block, a tall corpuscle stood in the shadows, staring at them.